Hey everyone, so got another pin review here for you, and today we're going to do the Moonman M200 and kind of take a detailed look at the pin, kind of cover the parts of the pin, compare it to the M100, kind of some similar design characteristics as well as some that are different. And then I'll tell you what I like about the pin, what I don't like about the pin, and then of course we'll do a writing sample. So this is another fairly new release by Moonman, another I think beautiful fountain pen. So as you can tell, it's another acrylic fountain pen. This is in their M series. So if you've noticed, they have all sorts of pens now. It seems like they're having the 100 series, kind of like Pelican sort of, where we have an M100, now we have an M200. And we even have an M300 available for purchase already. And kind of similar with the N series. You have an N1, you have an N2, you have an N3 now. And this pen, to me, kind of takes certain design characteristics from the 100 series as well as just a little bit from the N series, and I'll kind of show that as we go through the review. So first things first, this pen does come with your standard Moonman pen coffin with the cardboard or paper sleeve. I'm not going to show that for the review. It did have one of the little tags attached to the actual clip. But let's jump into the actual pen and kind of start covering the parts. So like the M100, it is a cigar-shaped fountain pen, but one of the differences, and I actually have an M100 right here, as you can tell, we have more of a cone shape here, similar to a Schaefer pen, whereas this one we have more of a rounded shape. So again, definitely an homage pen to the Schaefer balance, but I do like the fact that they just kind of change the design slightly with the M200. I personally like the look of the pen. You know, if you're more of someone that likes, you know, pointier ends, I totally understand that. I like cigar-shaped pens, period. This one kind of has that Pilot Custom 74 look to me, just as far as the fact that we have more curvature around the ends of the pen. Now the clip is another different design element. Now I do like this clip. You know, when we compare the two clips here, this one over here on the left just feels really nice. Now it is stiffer, but it does work. It's not as springy as our M100 clip. To me, that one's a lot springier and probably overall a little bit more functional, but I like the aesthetics look of this one, just my own personal opinion. Now, another change that we see with this pen is we actually have two cap bands now, whereas in the M100 there's no cap bands, and we actually have branding on the pen as well. Whereas the M100, the only real branding that was on the pen was on the inside portion of the barrel, so you literally have to almost fully disassemble the pen to know for sure that it was a Moonman fountain pen. Now this kind of is very similar to the N2, where we have a metal cap band there that says Moonman. So same style cap band, but we have a dual cap band on this one. Now I actually don't mind the fact that there's a cap band on this. I like that. I do like the fact that it's going to kind of reinforce that material. I mean, all of us know as you cap and uncap the pins, you're putting a lot of stress and tension on the end of this cap here, and generally that's where you'll get stress cracks and things of that nature. So hopefully with this metal piece here, that will help kind of reinforce that section. The other thing, it adds a little bit more weight to the pen. Now, personally, weight is not a big deal to me, but if you like a pen that's a little bit heavier, really feels nice in the hand, to me, when I first picked up this pen, it definitely feels a little bit heavier, and really when you compare the two and hold them in both hands, you can tell that the M200 is a little bit of a heavier pen. This clip is definitely a stronger metal or thicker metal and has a little bit more density to it, which I think adds to that weight as well. Now, from what I've been able to tell on the M200 line, it comes in predominantly 4 different colors. This white cracked version that you see here, which I actually really liked it. I don't have an acrylic this exact color. It has a brown one, it has a, if I'm not mistaken, a blue one and a green one. The green one to me is very pretty as well. The brown one reminds me a little bit of a Conklin All-American brownstone fountain pen, which I own one of those, and that guy is right here, and that's kind of what the brown one looks like a little bit. So uncapping this pen takes about 1 3/4 turns to get the cap off. So there you see 1 full turn, and then we get about 3/4 of the way around. It reveals that section. Now, there is some differences in the section as well, and I'll kind of show that here. So first things first, we'll notice that the overall section length is a little bit longer on our M100. Now, this section over here on our M200 is a little bit girthier here, but then you can tell it concaves down towards the end and then just slightly flares back out. Now, this section reminds me a little bit of a Franklin-Christoph pen, and I'm sure there are plenty of other pens out there. I just can't think of them, but I've seen so many Franklin-Christoph models, or a few different ones, that have this same kind of concave where it's fatter up here and then concaves down. Now, I thought that I would not like this section. I thought it would be a little bit discomforting, or it would feel weird to hold because I don't own any other pens that have this. And honestly, it's pretty comfortable to write with. I don't mind it. I've written several pages at once with this pen. Haven't really had any hand fatigue. You know, without the cap, it is a much lighter pen, of course, because you don't really have much metal in here. So it is lighter. Now, one thing to note as well is there is a step down on both pens, because those caps are a little bit more flush. They don't hang out very much. The step down on the M200 to me is a little bit sharper. You definitely can tell that it is a thicker step down as well, and it is a little bit sharper. Now, I don't mind it. Now, I personally don't mind it, but I could see where it could be discomforting for some people. So I do think it's something that would be important to note to you. The threads are spaced farther apart and definitely are not sharp at all. So those are not discomforting whatsoever. Typically with this pen, I started holding it right here, but I've actually moved down to here because that section, I like the way that my middle finger rests in that little concave, and it's pretty comfortable to hold about at this position. And as you can tell, I personally don't need to post it, but this pen can post, and it does, to me, make it a little bit more back heavy. Now, if you have much larger hands, you probably won't notice it as much. So just something to note, it can post. To me, it posts nicely, but it is a little bit back weighted. It does post securely as well. And that's one of the other things that I would say they actually improved on from the M100 to the M200 is the actual ability to post. While the M100 posts, if you guys remember my reviews, it kind of posts awkwardly. And as you can tell, I can move around the cap, and you can, if you push it down on there, you can get it on there. I do worry about adding stress to the cap, as well as you're writing, it kind of pops over a while, or over time, and then the cap comes loose. So it's not a pen, in my opinion, that I ever post. This one, however, you can post it more securely. It's not coming off. It really takes more force to get that cap off of the actual barrel. So it does post better. Another thing that they did improve on, and I'm going to show this real quick, is one of, I think, the really the primary disadvantage to the M100 was that cross-threading issue when you go to recap the pen. It was something that was brought up in my comments on my video several times. This pen dramatically has improved that. And I think part of that is the threads on the actual section or barrel here. You'll notice we have much finer threads here. We have more threads here. They're not very deep, and they're not spread out. Whereas on our M200 here, you'll notice the threads, there's less threads, they're deeper, and they're more spread out. There's more surface area there. And it is machined into the cap, as you can tell, so there's nothing special there, but it is very smooth. And I have not had any cross-threading issues with this pen. I've been able to cap it and uncap it without any issues whatsoever. So again, another nice, I think, upgrade from the M100 to the M200 fountain pen. Now let's take a look at the inside portion here. Very similar to the M100. We have that same Schmidt converter. It's just really their economy converter. I know there's a special name for it, but I don't know what that is. But it's basically just their economy converter. No metal here. Nothing to really kind of reinforce the converter, but it works. It does the job. I have no complaints. And then we do have a metal section here. Now, if you remember on the M100, I can show you guys. That is really where our branding was. We have Moonman here. Looks a little bit nicer, you know, I mean, but personally, who's really, in my opinion, looking at that very much? I don't really think either one is better or worse. The Moonman M100 definitely looks better. That would be the one thing I would say. So aesthetically it looks better. Now I did mess with that metal piece there to see if it was easily removable. Now I could tell that the Schmidt nib does screw into that unit. So very similar to our N3 fountain pen and a lot of our LIY fountain pens that we see. I think this is just going to be a common setup whenever you have a Schmidt nib unit. That metal piece, typically that unit is going to screw into that piece. And in some of the pens, they seem to either be adhered or very well like friction fit into the section, and then some of them, kind of like our LIY pens, that literally just falls out. So this one, a little bit better design at least. I don't know if it's glued in there or if it's just really nice and tight in the section. I did try and pull on it a little bit and it did not remove. Of course, we have our standard Schmidt number 5 nib. This is a fine nib. And I'll talk more about the nib when we get to the writing sample. We've got the same feed on the back, same nib unit you see on a lot of Chinese pens right now, but specifically the Moonman pens and LIY pens for that matter. So real quick, we'll do some sizing comparisons with the pen with some other popular Moonman models. And then at the end, I'll kind of tell you guys what I like about the pen and what I don't like. Okay, so here we are with our sizing comparisons. All of these pens right here. This is their full length. So starting from the bottom and working our way to the top, we have the Moonman N3 here. Very nice, this is not a very girthy pen, but nice length overall. We of course got our M200, our M100, and then a very popular fountain pen, the Moonman M2 model. So overall length for all of these pens, very similar. Now you'll notice when you uncap them, these three stay predominantly about the same. The M2 does get a little bit smaller when you uncap it, comparatively speaking. So let's look at the pens real fast without them being posted. Okay, here we see all the pens uncapped, unposted form. And of course, I don't know what I'm talking about. It just, I guess, feels smaller, but the Moonman M2 is basically the same size as these other four. And actually, the M200 overall is a little bit shorter, and part of that is due to that section. And that, to me, could be the deal breaker for some people. I think some people could love this section, some people could really strongly dislike the section. Let's take a closer look at these sections real quick and see. So here we see the sections up closer. Now you can also see the step downs. All four of these pens do have a step down. And the sections, you know, when you really look at these sections, I really enjoy the M2 section, the overall pen. It just feels nice. It's a little bit girthier. And while I like the M100, I really don't mind the M200 at all. The N3 section is probably my least favorite, but I'm not condoning that because of that. I just think these three pens on the right here are just very nice performers as far as the overall writing experience goes. Of course, nibs, very similar. We have that kind of M2 nib that's a little bit different than the other four. I've got an FPR Flex nib on this one, so totally different. And then we have our Schmidt nib here, and then we have our Moonman nib here. And then the feeds, we've got that injection molded feed there. We've got a Schmidt feed, and then, in my opinion, kind of another German or probably Schmidt feed on the M2 as well. All pens write well, they perform well. Now let's take a look at them real fast, posted. So here we see all four pens posted, and in my opinion, really the main two pens that are you can easily write with posted are the bottom two. The top two just don't post very well, and part of that I just think is the overall design of the pens. You can post them, technically. They're just not a very secure post and not as comfortable, and I always feel like the cap's gonna just fly off the pin whenever I'm using them, and I'm referring to the M100 and the M2 up top. The other two down below, I just kind of set these here. This one does post high. They all basically post somewhat high. They don't post very deeply, but as I showed you before, very nice, comfortable pin. A little bit back heavy, but if you like a nice weight to your pin, the M200 is nice from that perspective. All right, guys, so what do I like about the pin? What do I not like about the pin? Ultimately, I really like this design a lot. I think it's taking different design elements from other Moonman pins, and it's kind of improved a little bit. The section I thought I would not like, I actually enjoy the section. I don't really have any complaints about this pin whatsoever. I like the fact that they improved on the M100's probably main primary flaw of that cross-threading issue. This pin has fixed that. And as far as anything that I don't like about it, there's really, again, there's not a lot that I don't like about the pin. The nib performs well. I'll show you guys that in the writing sample. It's one of the better Schmidt nibs I've used in a while. So when we do the writing sample, you'll get to see that in action. I approve of the pin. The price was reasonable. I'll give you guys the price in the writing sample. I did purchase this one off of eBay. I have the M300. I've already purchased it from Etsy. Hopefully that will be here in a couple weeks. And once I get that, I will do a review on it as well. But guys, like I said, I enjoy the pin. I have honestly no complaints. The only thing that I could see maybe being an issue for some people is the section just being a little bit different and on the smaller side, and that step down is a little bit steeper, and I can see it being sharper. That may be discomforting for some of you and may want you, may steer you in another direction as far as using other pins. So always bear that in mind, but in my opinion, it doesn't bother me at all. So up next, I'm gonna put some dimensions on there as well as some weights so you guys can see that, and then we're going to knock out a writing sample. See you guys in a moment. Okay guys, we are back and we're going to do this writing sample real quick. So we have the Moonman M200. We have a Schmidt fine nib, and this is honestly one of the nicer Schmidt nibs I've used. A little bit wetter, writes more consistently. I actually enjoy it. The ink that I am using is 3 Oysters. And it's a new ink. This one is Namsan or Namsan. Namsan, I apologize, I'm probably destroying it. It's a very nice dark green color. I picked this ink up from Goulet. I do like the ink a lot. Do a quick writing sample for you guys. There you have it. As far as wetness goes, like I said, this is one of the better Schmidt nibs I've used. Decently wet. The ink is pretty nice and saturated. You get a little bit of line variation. These nibs are a little bit softer, but it's not meant for any type of real line variation. As far as reverse writing, pretty scratchy and doesn't really keep up very well. So not a pen that you can do a lot of reverse writing with. Fast writing, that might have been me there as far as the skip, but it can keep up. It's a Schmidt nib. It's not perfect by any means, but this honestly is one of the nicer Schmidt nibs I have used. So I actually enjoy it from that perspective pretty well. Now as far as price goes, I paid $40.99 for it. That was including shipping. I know right now you can get this pen in the $30 price range. I've seen it, I think, as low as around $34. on eBay. I haven't looked at it on Etsy, so I don't know what the price is on there. And I bought this pen right when it was, of course, like just been released to eBay. So generally when that happens, their prices, they always release them, it seems like, higher price points. And then they start to go down. So as long as you're patient, you know, willing to wait. I didn't want to wait on this pen. I wanted to get it so I could, you know, try it out and see if it was an upgrade or an improvement on the M100. And I think that in some aspects it is. There are still a lot of things on the M100 I love. I still love the overall design of the M100 and the materials. There's a lot more colors available on this, and maybe on the M200 they'll release more colors. But they just released the M300, which is kind of weird. But with that one, there's more releases, but that one seems right now at least to be at a higher price point. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the review. I really, really like this pen. I've been very impressed with Moonman and all of their releases lately. So I approve it. I think it's a great pen. Get it around that $30 to $35 price range. I think you get a steal. As always, everyone take care, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.